In this session, we will be talking about self-management insights from Bharatiya Shastra. I am Ankur Joshi, Assistant Professor at Faculty of Management Studies, Banasthali Vidyapeeth. We have an OMRISE research group which has been formed in collaboration with Buurtzorg and Tran Group from Netherlands. This group does extensive research on theme of organization management, research, innovation, sustainable entrepreneurship, and has conducted various conferences, seminars, workshops on theme of integrating simplification, integrative intelligence, self-management, etc. Professor Shada Nandram from Y University has developed new ideas in this domain, and she has been collaborating with the researchers at Banasthali Vidyapeeth. She has been visiting here to develop and present these ideas to the world. In this session, we will be focusing on Bharatiya Shastra because when we talk about self-discipline or self-management, Bharatiya Shastra have a lot to offer. So before we begin, when we hear the word manage or management, what does come to our mind? You would agree that there is an inherent tendency to manage others who may be employee, family, society, money, economy, organization, and even today people talk about environmental management. Surprisingly, it is very difficult to control our physical, natural, and biological actions. We cannot control our heartbeat, blood pressure. We have almost no control over the involuntary functions of body like inhaling and exhaling. If we are feeling sleepy, we find it very difficult to keep the eyes open, and the growth or degeneration of body with age is beyond our control. Similarly, the functions of organs are also beyond our control. More surprisingly, it is very difficult to control the mind, as we find that it is very chanchal. It is very hard to resist the temptations of mind. When we feel attracted to something, even if we are doing very urgent and important task, there is a strong urge to go and visit that place or look into that matter, and our attraction towards that thing deprives our attention from the main task that we do. And this is not the case just with normal being. Even greatest of greatest people find it very difficult to control the mind. So, an important question is, how can we manage others when we cannot even manage ourselves? Thus, the idea of self-management is to put our house in order so that we can help others put their house in the order. Self management is about efforts to control self, manage the physical body, especially the mental body. And for this, in this session, we will be focusing on three steps from Bharati scriptures, especially Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita. What are these three steps? First is trying to explore or understand self by asking fundamental questions, trying to gain control over self, and third, acknowledging the infinite power of Mann and adopting Nishkaam Karma. Begin. In this step 1, it is about asking the fundamental questions like, who am I? From where have I come to this world? To where am I heading? A brief answer to the first question of who am I is that we are a composition of sthula sharira, sukshma sharira, and the pran, atma or jeev by whatever name we would want to call it. The stool sharir or the physical body is made from prithvi, jal, agni, vayu and akash, that are the five tattva, panch tattva as we know. The sukshma sharir is comprised of mana, buddhi, chitta and ahamkara. And the jeev or atma is eternal, is ansh of Bhagwan. Some of you, if you have read Ramayana, you might have heard Ishwar Ansh Jeev Avinashi. So that Jeev is a part or a ansh of Bhagwan and thereby is Avinashi in nature. The Sthul Sharir and the Sukshma Sharir are part of Prakriti, the nature has given us, and Jeev or Atma is from Brahma or Ishwar that we can call. An interesting analogy is shared in our Upanishad about the existence or a composition of a being. So if we compare human being to a rath, there are horses, there is a lagam, there is a sarthi, there is a rathi. So in terms of comparison or analogy with a human being, the horses here are sense organs or the senses, the lagam is mana, the Sarathi is Buddhi and the Rathi is the Atma or Jeev. How this analogy can be helpful in understanding self and managing self, we will be looking it in the next step. So the Buddhi, which is enlightened through the Atma-Gyan, becomes Nishchayatmika Buddhi. What is the relationship with the analogy that we just discussed? The Rathi there, when guides or directs the Sarathi, Sarathi knows where to go. Similarly, when a person focuses on Atma Gyan, his or her buddhi becomes enlightened. That type of buddhi is called as Nishchayatmika buddhi, which is decisive, which knows what is right and which is what is wrong. Just in case of Rath, when the Sarthi knows what to do, what not to do, he or she can control the horses with the help of lagam. Similarly, this buddhi has the capacity to control man from going haywire. And when buddhi has control over man, subsequently the man has control over the sense organs and thus whole body is in control. And as the chariot would reach to the right destination, similarly the person or a human being will reach to right destination by traversing the righteous path. You might ask or think that this sounds very easy, but how to practice it? So, and in to take it further, we will look an example. If I see a phone on a table and I get attracted toward it. I feel the urge or a temptation to have it, but since I know it doesn't belong to me, I am not the rightful owner. But that so powerful urge or a temptation to have it might make me to steal it, and suddenly I would become anxious, heartbeat would go up, body would start shivering, and in this manner, the inner voice will try its best to prevent me from doing the wrong. Even if there is no one in the room, this inner voice will resist me from grabbing the phone. But there are two cases possible. If I listen to the inner voice and let go the unrighteous urge to steal the phone, I would move on and there won't be any problem. But when I cannot resist my man, I cannot resist the temptation, my buddhi gets overpowered, and I am not in my own control. I somehow go and grab the phone. I steal it and move on. That is not the one time phenomena. Next time, when I go there, my eye would be on the laptop. Now, what would happen if in the previous case I had avoided listening to the inner voice? I grabbed the phone. Today, while trying to steal the laptop, it will be very easy for me. My heart will not beat that fast. Body will not shiver to that level. And a day will come when I would become a cold blooded criminal by repeating this act n number of times. However, if fortunately I had listened to my inner voice and had I refrained from stealing the mobile phone, this time heart will beat faster. There will be shivers down the spine even with an iota of thought to steal, and my buddhi will be able to control man, and I would resist that even a slightest of urge to steal, and thereon I will follow the righteous path. So, what is the essence of this story? When we listen to the inner voice, the Vivek Buddhi, the discretionary wisdom or the discerning wisdom, grows multifold. When I pay respect to its advice, to its inner calling, next time it gives me better guidance, it leads to righteous path more effectively and more efficiently. It will help in avoiding the distractions of man. It will not allow man to overpower itself. And this idea helps us manage ourselves better because Atma-Gyan or the inner sense conscious is in everyone and is in full enlightened state. The only thing we need is self realization of that infinite power.
Is in line with the idea of Aatm-Kalyaan. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan has talked about concept of Atma hi Mitra and Atma hi Shatru. What does this mean? It means that the person who has gained control over the man, Indriya, is friend of self, and a person who has not been able to gain the control over these sense organs, and man is his own enemy. So that is the idea of Atma-hi Mitra and Atma-hi Shatru. So you might think that it is easier said than done, and to control man, to become a Atma Mitra or a Atma Shatru, whichever side it is very difficult task, because we have been experiencing it since long time that whenever we try to control man, it backfires, it boomerangs. So yes, the answer is partially yes, because when Bhagwan Krishna was also talking to Arjun about the idea of Sthit Pragya, then Bhagwan talked about Sukha Dukha Samay Kritva Labha Labha Jaya Jayo, Sukh Dukh Labh Hani Jay Parajay. A person who is able to keep his balance in all these extremes, in dualities of nature and life, that person is called a Sthit Pragya. So Arjun uh, listened to all these ideas very carefully, but fortunately for us, he asked a direct question to Bhagwan Krishna and said that I find it very difficult because man is very chanchal, and to control it is an uphill task for me. So Bhagwan Krishna agreed to it and acknowledged that man has got infinite powers, and he said, Asanchayam Mahabaho मनोदुर्निग्रहं चलम् अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय वैराग्येण च गृह्यते. Bhagwan suggested that after agreeing to your concern that man is difficult to control, I agree that it is difficult to control, but there are two ways in which this task can be done. First is abhyasa. By putting relentless efforts to bring back man from the points of distractions and to put it to remember Bhagwan while performing all the duties is abhyas. He suggested that man will deviate, man will look for distractions. So when it goes there, try to bring it back. You can do Bhagwan Nam Kirtan, you can try to focus on the work that you do and try to see Bhagwan in each and every particle. So with the help of this Bhagavad Buddhi, by ability to experiencing Bhagwan in each and every particle, this process of controlling man would be easy. Second idea he suggested was of Vairagya. Unfortunately, in our country, Vairagya has been discussed only in terms of renunciation from the outer world aspects. But Bhagwan has mentioned clearly that Vairagya is not just about the renunciation of duties and responsibilities and shunning the outer world, but it is to remain indifferent to the fruits and outcomes of the action after putting in 100% of efforts. And this type of Vairagya is high is higher order in nature and is more appreciated. The reason being that a person who performs action is easily able to get rid of all the deviations and distraction that man does. So by following the idea of abhyas and vairagya, one can achieve this state which we are talking about, sthit pragya, or it may be Aatm-Kalyaan, or it may be Atma hi Mitra. All these ideas are possible.
In chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, which is named as Bhakti Yoga, Bhagwan Krishna suggested that one should not make efforts beyond his or her capabilities. So he rejected the idea of Hatha Yoga if it is not possible for a person. He suggested Yukt Ahar Vihar. He suggested a balanced approach, and in this balanced approach, he suggested that person should follow the path which is sugam for him, which is easier. So in chapter 12, when he talks about the path to achieve balance of mind, peace of mind, he first one he suggested that while performing all the actions, a person should remember Bhagwan. Like कर्म करते हुए भगवान का स्मरण करते रहना. Then he suggested if one finds it difficult, then there is an alternate option. One can perform duties and action for Bhagwan. Like कर्म भगवान के लिए करना. If that is also difficult, then the karm itself can be dedicated to Bhagwan. The actions can be dedicated to Bhagwan. कर्म भगवान को अर्पण करना. If that is also difficult for a person, then कर्म का फल भगवान को अर्पण किया जा सकता है. Dedicating the fruits of action or the consequences of action to Bhagwan. Phala tyag is the idea that is discussed, and it is mentioned that tyaga chanti ranantaram. This phal tyag leads to peace of mind. Through this process, one can achieve higher levels of satisfaction within, and all duties that are due, all the responsibilities that are due at any level are also fulfilled. So we can see a fine balance of self management with all the dimensions being taken care of. So, to sum up, what we discussed today is self management from Bharatiya scriptures can help us in leading a fruitful, a purposeful life with a calm and composite attitude. For this, first, there is a need to shun the desire or the urge to manage or control others. Rather, try to explore self, understand self, and subsequently making efforts to gain control over self, empowering the buddhi and enlightening it with Aatm-Kalyaan, ultimately leading it to a state of Nishayatmika buddhi, and rest work can be done by that Nishayatmika buddhi while acknowledging that Mann has got an infinite power. We can make efforts, abhyas, we can go for vairagya, dedicate the fruits of action, and finally taking the path of Nishkaam Karm to discharge all the duties and responsibilities at all levels. So I trust you might have found this session interesting. And before we close, I would request you to take some time and write a brief summary of this session based on whatever idea or thought that you liked or you found interesting. And more importantly, not just from the theoretical perspective, whichever idea you liked and you would like to implement in your life. So you can try to draft it, you can articulate it, maybe point wise or paragraph wise, and you can share with us on prime@banasthali.in, prime @banasthali.in. Also, you can share your feedback about the session. धन्यवाद.